Hi guys, welcome to Less is More. My name is Dan Wellman and today we'll look at the math functions that Less provides for operating on numerical values. These are similar to the colour functions that we looked at in the last part of the series. The functions Less exposes for working with numbers are round, floor and ceil. If you've any experience with JavaScript at all, you'll already know what these functions do, but for the benefit of those that don't know, the round function rounds a decimal number up or down depending on whether it is closer to the number above or the number below. The floor function always rounds a decimal down to the number below, while the ceil function always rounds a decimal number up to the number above. The math functions are used in exactly the same way as the colour functions and are just as easy, if not easier, to master. They can be useful when calculating values for which whole numbers are required, such as box model properties. So if we were to try to do something like this, this is obviously not going to give us a whole number. So let's just create a style that uses that. And when we crunch the file, we'll take a look at our class. Yeah, okay, so I mean that's probably going to work, but it's not very tidy, and because of how different browsers round subpixel values differently, our resulting class is probably going to be a different width in various different browsers. So to fix that, we can use one of the math functions. So instead of just doing the calculation here, we could floor it instead. And when we crunch that and look at the resulting style sheet there, yeah, okay, that's a much friendlier figure. So the round and the ceil function work in exactly the same way. If we use ceil instead of floor, then we will get something else. So we'll compile that again. Yeah, and this time we get 167 because it's rounded it up. And if we'd have used round, we'd also get 167 because 166.66 is closer to 167 than it is 166. So there's one more math function that Less provides. This is the percentage function, and this takes a decimal number and returns it as a percentage. We should always pass a decimal that is between 0 and 1 to the percentage function, because if we don't, then we won't get the output that we expect. So if we wanted to do something like this, we should pass in a value between 0 and 1. So if we pass in 0.2, then when we compile that and take a look at the CSS for our class 2 selector, that's not worked. And the reason it's not worked is because the function is called percentage, not percent. So sorry about that. Yeah, so now we've got the figure we expect, 20%. Although not related to math functions in any way whatsoever, I feel that we should just take a brief look at scope in Less before we get into mixing territory in the next part of the series. Scope in Less is very simple. If a variable is defined in the same block that it is used, it is said to be local to the block, and so will take precedence inside the block. So when Less gets compiled, the compiler will first look inside of a block to see if the variable that is being used is within the block, and if it's not, then it will look in the parent scope, and so on. So the variables that we've defined here are all equivalent to global variables, so they can be used anywhere inside any level of nesting, whereas if we do something like this, let's just get rid of some of these because we don't actually need them. So if we do So if we set a variable inside a block, so block scope is denoted by curly brackets, our local variable, we can't use it here. So we can't access the variable outside of the block. So yeah, whereas any of the global variables that we've defined here, we can obviously use those anywhere. So that's how scope works in Less. It's very, very simple, and I just mention it now because you might wonder how scope works, and if you do wonder, it works like that. So in this part of the tutorial, we looked at the simple math functions that Less offers. They're very basic and there's only a few of them, but they can come in handy sometimes, so do bear them in mind, even if they aren't the feature that you use most often. And we also just took a very, very quick look at scope in Less, and scope itself is so simple that it literally took a minute for me to explain everything that there is to know about it. So you're now a master of scope, and you're a master of math functions in Less. So well done. Over the next few parts of the series, we'll look at the various forms of mixin that can be used with Less, starting with their most simple form, flat mixins without arguments. Thanks for watching.